of all places. It doesn't seem right. Royals, diplomats, UK politicians.
Quite different. I don't look at Meghan as someone who I would get business advice from because I find her quite vacuous.
She said, if I had to write a resume, I don't...
The kind that Jon Stewart has honed over the years. Sharp as a knife, full of sarcasm, and full of one-liners that cut deeper than most interviews ever could. But this time it wasn't just politics or media hypocrisy that Stewart was going after. It was Meghan Markle. By the time Stewart made his now famous quip, Meghan's name wasn't just trending. It was being picked apart like a failed startup presentation on Shark Tank. All it took was one syllable. He said she was the worst businesswoman of the year. No royal drama, no tabloid headlines, just one brutally honest punch that was louder than any palace controversy. And the reason it hit so hard was that it felt real. It was the kind of reality that had been around for years, dancing about headlines and being whispered in Hollywood circles, but no one had ever stated it out loud until Stewart ripped off the Band-Aid in front of a national audience. This wasn't simply another meme or tweet for Meghan. It hurt her reputation because, let's be honest, she's been trying to construct an empire since she left the royal family. This empire is made up of podcasts, book deals, production contracts, rumors about her lifestyle brand, and sound bites about her charity work. It looks great on paper, but in real life, it's a trail of shiny press releases and unfinished work.
Prove that you're a good wife or a good friend, and I was like, I am just so done with the prove it game.
Let's
begin with the many forms of podcasts. Meghan's first large audio show. It was sold as a concert that would break down barriers and push feminist ideas ahead, a project that would make her a thought leader. It had prominent guests, Spotify was all in on it, and there was a $20 million deal on the line. But the execution was terrible.
Meghan Markle has finally revealed why she and Prince Harry call each other M and H. What could it be?
What might it be behind the scenes? It was a mess. Reports suggest that a lot of the writing was done by ghostwriters. Meghan didn't have much to do with the interviews themselves. Some attendees said they didn't even talk to her directly. The huge ideas never really worked, and after just one season, the show died out like a candle in a wind tunnel. Spotify cut them off, and they weren't nice about it. Bill Simmons, one of Spotify's top executives, even labeled Meghan and Harry effing grifters in public. That's not clickbait. That's someone in the deal burning the bridge. What did Meghan do next? She turned again. This time she got in touch with Lemonada. Media, new program, new pitch, Confessions of a Female Founder. The title alone sounded good. It checked all the branding boxes for empowerment, leadership, and womanhood. But after only 8 episodes, the project was put on hold without any word on whether she was paid. There wasn't a real audience buildup, and the same cycle happened on a different platform. Hype, launch, fade to black. That's why Jon Stewart's joke felt like a wake-up call. Meghan's business ventures aren't ventures. They are PR stunts that are painstakingly planned, brilliantly baited, but rarely carried out. And others are starting to recognize the trends, not just the critics, but also her own fans.
But this is the new show that Netflix is promoting with the American actress who became a duchess, who tried to destroy the royal family, which then...
There is the contract with Netflix. Do you remember all the talk about the Sussex documentary? It offered a close, honest glimpse behind the scenes. Instead, it handed us a carefully chosen highlight reel that was polished, safe, and ultimately disappointing. Critics were quite honest. Reviews included words like self-serving, surface level, and repetitive. The doc may have gotten views, but if anything, it made the credibility gap worse, not smaller. The same thing happened with her children's book, The Bench. It came out with the typical headlines and a little bit of acclaim, but within a few weeks, it was gone from the cultural radar. It didn't win any prizes or have a big literary influence. It just got polite nods and then faded away. The one thing that ties all of this cacophony together is that Meghan's projects usually look great on the outside. They have great branding, perfect shooting, and perfect timing, but they always lack substance. Thanks to Jon Stewart, they finally have it. People may now see into that shiny outside, and we shouldn't overlook Archewell, her nonprofit idea.
We got a show for you tonight, my God!
It was meant to be the heart of her existence after the royal family, full of purpose, worldwide compassion, and a daring shift toward making a difference in the world. The site is filled of phrases that make you want to do better, including compassion in action, mental health, racial equity, and digital safety. But if you look a little closer, you'll see imprecise reports, unclear relationships, and very few clear results. In the meantime, other celebrity-led charities are getting things done. The Clara Lionel Foundation, which is run by Rihanna, is paying for education and disaster aid around the world. The Obama Foundation is helping people all throughout the world become leaders. Meghan's distributes styled photographs and mission statements. It doesn't seem like a nonprofit. It seems more like an extension of her own branding strategy. And then there's the brand for health that no one knows about. You may have heard the rumors in the news. Meghan wants to build an empire like Goop, but it might be fashion or luxury home items depending on the week. But one thing is always the same. There isn't a real product. It's simply Instagram teases and PR guesswork. We've been hearing about this lifestyle brand for months, but we still don't know when it will launch, what its prototype will look like, or even if it'll have a website. All we see are vague notions in the news. It's branding without a name. That leads us back to Jon Stewart's takedown. Come on.
Always loved taking something pretty ordinary and elevating it.
He didn't say anything cruel. He didn't attack her personally. He made a professional.
He didn't say anything harsh. He didn't hurt her directly. He made a professional decision, which is something the media has been too afraid to do for too long. He pointed out the big difference between looking successful and actually being successful. Real entrepreneurs make things, work hard, lead teams, solve issues, and get things done. Meghan acts like an entrepreneur with fancy clothes and a polished script, but she doesn't do any of the hard work that makes it genuine. The royal title helped too. Let's not act like being the Duchess of Sussex didn't help. It got her the meetings, the money, and the attention. It was the driving force behind every firm. But that shine is fading now. People are more skeptical than curious about her new projects. And even her most loyal fans are starting to ask tough questions. What are the results? What happened to the huge promises? Why does everything seem like a movie preview that never comes out? When a late night host becomes the voice of reason in your work life, it's time to rethink everything. You're not running a brand anymore if the comedians stop laughing with you and start laughing at you. You're running on empty, and it's not only the media that's pulling back behind the scenes. The aftermath has actual effects. Some people who work in the sector today say that Meghan is a high-risk, low-return investment. That's code 4 for Hollywood. She brings too much drama and not enough reward. Production companies who used to fight to get her screenplays are now quietly backing away. Studio bosses are less sure. It's now difficult to get sponsors to agree. When the quiet says everything, you don't need official declarations. For example, Netflix is said to have tightened its grip on the Sussexes, who still have a development pact in place. The time of open checkbooks is ended. There is now greater oversight and more requests for deliverables, proof of concept, and real creative effort. The animated series Pearl that Meghan had planned was canceled before it even got into production. The stated explanation was budget constraint, but it was evident that they didn't want to take a chance on promise without performance. That was the part that Meghan never seemed to get. Hollywood isn't loyal. It's a deal. As long as you bring buzz, you're valuable. But the second the buzz turns into baggage, you're replaceable. When Jon Stewart made fun of your business record in public, that was a sign to producers, investors, and media executives that the Duchess Midas touch might not be as great as it seemed. The timing of all this is the worst aspect. Meghan had finally started to make plans for a comeback. There were new stories in the news concerning her return to Hollywood. There are rumors that she has signed with a new talent agency, that she is going to act again, or that she is going to start a lifestyle empire that will rival Goop or Skims. The story was ready. Meghan 2.0 finally taking charge of her life. One well-timed jab from Stewart broke through all that commotion and reminded everyone of version 1.0, the version that left a trail of canceled concerts, puzzled audiences, and headlines that raised more questions than they answered. It was like seeing a balloon gently fill up again, only to be burst by a sharp pin. And here's the deeper layer. Most people don't realize that Meghan is not only being criticized in public. She's running out of time to see public patience. In the celebrity business world, you can fail once, twice, or maybe even 3 times. But if you keep failing, we're loud and don't say anything about it, it becomes your brand. Once failure becomes your brand, it's 10 times tougher to rebuild. That's the trap she's in right now. The more she attempts to change her brand, the more evident it is that it doesn't work. One minute she's an activist, the next she's a producer, then a podcaster, and now a lifestyle guru. In each capacity, she comes in with a bang and leaves with a shrug. Reese Witherspoon, on the other hand, moved from being a rom-com star to a Hollywood powerhouse by secretly obtaining book rights, starting her own production company and making success after smash. Reese didn't get Hello Sunshine by doing interviews and taking pictures. She built it on strategy, execution, and actual output. And now she's not just renowned, but also respected. Meghan, on the other hand, has sought to skip steps in the procedure. She wants the empire, but not the effort that goes into it. She wants the Oprah-level platform without the Oprah-level grind. But in today's digital market, where honesty is key and audiences can tell when something isn't real from a mile away, it doesn't work. The late-night monologue that started all this wasn't meant to hurt anyone. It was based on what I saw. People on Reddit, columnists, and podcast panelists have already said or hinted at what Jon Stewart said. He just made it clear, and because he is respected, progressive, and not the kind of person who likes to read tabloids, his criticism meant something. Piers Morgan wasn't throwing a fit. This was a trusted cultural voice putting up a mirror, and the reflection wasn't good. Of course, Meghan's supporters quickly came to her aid. There were tweets about sexism, about how women of color are held to unjust standards, and about how Jon Stewart should have known better. And while if those talks are necessary, especially in an industry that is still very faulty, they can't hide the main problem. It's not about her gender, it's about her outcomes or lack of them. Her business record speaks for itself. The truth is that Meghan has gotten more chances, support, and media coverage than most businesses could ever hope for. But what does she have to show for it? A canceled podcast, a Netflix series that was put on hold, a children's book that hardly sold, and a nonprofit that gets more press than progress. At some time, even her most dedicated fans will have to face the fact that they can't keep protecting her potential that never comes to be. Hope has a shelf life, and like many people, Meghan's is starting to run out. It's funny how this could have all turned out so differently. She didn't need to start a dozen projects. She could have chosen one, put all of her energy into it, and come up with something amazing, a great podcast, a great documentary, or a pioneering nonprofit project. If any of those had been done consistently and with enthusiasm, they would have been enough to silence the naysayers. She chose volume over value, optics over substance, and now she's in a brand crisis of her own making. Every new venture feels like an apology for the last one. Every headline reads like damage control instead of momentum, and every public appearance is less about progress and more about how people see her. Harry, on the other hand, seems to have found more solid ground. His memoir, Spare, may have caused a lot of controversy, but it was read. It had an effect. People said things about it. It made a chart. It showed that Harry, flaws and all, had something to say and stated it eloquently. Meghan, on the other hand, is still trying to figure out who she is, and until she does, every project will feel like a placeholder, like a test run for something that never comes. Jon Stewart didn't tap into anger or resentment, he tapped into exhaustion. The cultural malaise of seeing someone with all the resources fail to build anything that lasts. The joke wasn't mean, it was good for me. A lot of people had been thinking the same thing. We have been waiting and watching, and we are still wondering what you do. That's a tough question to get back up from. You can't talk your way out of this scandal. You can't get away from the press cycle. It's a wound to her reputation, and those take time and hard labor to heal. Meghan has a choice. She can follow the path. Keep making shiny objects that don't have any meaning. Keep using outdated headlines and optics. She should keep hope that the next initiative would work out, or she should stop and do what real entrepreneurs do. Start small and be real. Choose one thing, one message, and one mission. Make something that has roots, not just wings. Forget about the brand deals. Forget the royal name drop and the photo ops. Give them something that really matters, since the last few weeks have shown that people aren't waiting for the next Meghan Markle launch. They are waiting for her to have her first great success. And if that never happens, Jon Stewart's joke will be remembered not as a nasty moment, but as the end of an image that never lived up to its own hype. But here's the crazy part. Meghan's downfall isn't simply about losing money or getting bad press. It's all about timing. People want realness more than ever these days, and she had the perfect setup. A dramatic royal exit that made them worldwide headlines, an Oprah interview that made her feel like Beyonce at Coachella, and she blew it by acting like her public image was unbreakable. She could have rode that wave straight into the realm of cultural legacy instead of comprehending that it was based on borrowed goodwill. Instead, she's fighting a wave of disappointment, and the currents are just becoming stronger. That doesn't mean she can't change things around. She can, but it would take something she hasn't shown yet: vulnerability without vanity. Right now, every time she tries to change the story, it feels less like a pivot and more like a cover-up, less like growth and more like avoidance. Even her recent attempts at rebranding feel desperate. People close to the Sussex camp have been leaking stories about a big new project coming up, a documentary about female entrepreneurs, a feature on climate activism, and a new lifestyle line that is said to be inspired by California living. But again, these are just rumors, with no trailers, hard dates, or receipts. If Meghan really did make a documentary on the mistakes, hard lessons, and difficult truths she's had to deal with since she stopped being a princess, it would undoubtedly go viral. People adore stories about redemption, but only when they seem earned. And maybe that's the fundamental problem at the center of it all. Meghan hasn't exhibited her scars yet. She has tried to make it look like she is already healthy, wise, and successful. But the victory lap doesn't bring meaningful connection. It comes from the limp, which shows us where it hurt and how you kept going. The public can only see the limos, the Montecito mansion, the fancy clothes, and the $1 million agreements right now. That's a problem, because you can't sell relatability if you don't expose the cracks. Meghan's critics, who were once called trolls or haters, are starting to appear more like early warning signs that they weren't always wrong, just inconvenient. Now, the media that used to shield her is engaging in the criticism, not because they hate her, but because they are tired. Jon Stewart wasn't the only person to become angry. He was the proof of it. He said what a lot of people in business and entertainment were already saying: Meghan Markle is all pitch and no product. She's trying to become an entrepreneur without putting in the hard work that entrepreneurs need to be seen as a visionary. But she keeps coming up with visions that don't last. This moment isn't just about her. It's also a warning for the generation of influencers who have become founders. Meghan is a great illustration of what occurs when you mix up access with ability. Think a fan base is a client base, and trust your own press, but fail to make something that is worth talking about. We know what this is. Elizabeth Holmes wore a black turtleneck and gave a TED Talk, but she didn't have any working tech. Anna Delvey wanted to open an Instagram account and a Soho house, but she didn't have. Number 1, a business strategy. Meghan has the palace glow, the connections to celebrities, and the activist vocabulary, but no results. And even while she's not a scam artist like Holmes or Delvey, she's getting very close to the same pattern of making big promises and not following through on them. She won't simply be a joke at night if this keeps happening. She'll be the subject of a business case study, a headline in a Harvard class on how to fail at personal branding, and a warning slide at marketing conferences. This is what happens when you start a brand without knowing what it does. Harry, on the other hand, doesn't help. Rebuilding in silence. He's working on fewer projects, but they're more personal. Instead of constantly changing, he has become a figure of silent thought. And even if others don't always see him clearly, he doesn't seem puzzled. Meghan, on the other hand, is still performing and attempting to sell herself in 10 different ways at once. Let's talk about something that everyone is too nice to say. Markle weariness is real. People are tired of being told that something huge is coming, tired of media leaks and palace bashing when a new product is about to be out, and tired of the endless buildup with little emotional return. The truth is that being famous doesn't mean being loyal. Trust is not the same as attention. And if you burn your audience too many times, they won't come back. They go on, they look for the next underdog, the next person who shakes things up, and the next voice that doesn't seem scripted. What do we do now? Meghan has two choices though. She could double down on Chase, another Netflix approach, change the name of the show, establish a skincare business, and hope that something finally works. Or she could take a breath, step back from the hype, get off the red carpet, stop trying to beat Oprah at her own game, and instead listen to critics, advisors, and maybe even Jon Stewart, who beneath the punchline might have done her a favor. Buried in that joke was a challenge to stop pretending, to stop spinning and finally build something real, something with sweat in it, with time in it, something she'd be proud of, even if no one watched. Because at the end of the day, legacy isn't about followers, launch parties, or press releases. It's about what happens after the cameras stop rolling and what's left behind. Meghan Markle's brand seems more like a billboard than a structure right now. You can still remedy it, but time is running out, and the next punchline might not be as nice.